The marble floors of the five-star hotel gleamed beneath chandeliers, hiding stories of power and betrayal. The manager, convinced appearances defined worth, sneered at a quiet black woman who dared to approach the front desk. To her, this guest was powerless, someone to humiliate in front of wealthy onlookers for sport. With a sharp slap, she believed she'd put the woman back in her place. But she had no idea. The woman she struck in full view of a silent lobby wasn't just another face. She was the billionaire owner of the entire hotel chain. And nothing would ever be the same. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The marble floors of the Grand Plaza Hotel gleamed under crystal chandeliers, just as they had when Zahara Ellis spent countless nights polishing them. 16 years of memories lived in every corner of this lobby. She adjusted her modest beige trench coat, feeling the weight of those years as she approached the front desk. Wealthy guests in designer clothes milled about, their Louis Vuitton luggage wheeled silently across the floor by uniformed bellhops. Zahara kept her head high, though her heart pounded. The front desk stretched before her like a wall of mahogany and judgment. "May I speak with management, please?" Zahara's voice was soft but clear, carrying the quiet dignity she'd maintained through years of late shifts and aching backs. Alicia Sterling looked up from her computer screen, her lips curling into an immediate sneer. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped against the desk as she gave Zahara a slow, deliberate once-over. "Management?" Alicia's voice dripped with mockery. "The employment office is around back, through the service entrance." She gestured dismissively toward the kitchen doors. "Though I should warn you, we have certain standards here." A couple checking in nearby turned to stare. Zahara felt their eyes on her, but kept her spine straight. "I'm not here about employment. I need to speak with management regarding a business matter." Alicia's laugh was sharp and cruel, designed to cut. "A business matter? In that outfit?" She raised her voice slightly, ensuring nearby guests could hear. "Honey, that coat looks like it came from a discount bin. And those shoes." She clicked her tongue. "We don't even let our housekeepers wear scuffed shoes like that." Heat crept up Zahara's neck, but her expression remained calm. She knew this game, had watched it played out countless times from behind a cleaning cart. The way Alicia's eyes gleamed told her this was sport, a chance to assert dominance over someone she deemed beneath her. "The way you're dressed," Alicia continued, her voice carrying across the marble lobby, "you look more suited to cleaning rooms than conducting business, which," she added with a cruel smile, "is probably what you're really here for, isn't it?" Several guests nearby tittered nervously. A bellhop lowered his eyes, his hands tightening on the luggage cart. Zahara recognized that look, the helpless anger of watching injustice unfold but being powerless to stop it. "My appearance," Zahara said quietly, "has nothing to do with my business here." Her words were measured, careful. Years of practice holding her tongue while being belittled had taught her control. "Oh, but it does." Alicia's smile widened as she leaned forward. "Everything about you screams wrong side of the tracks. The cheap clothes, that drugstore makeup, even the way you stand. It's all wrong for this establishment." She glanced at the gathering crowd of onlookers. "We have a certain clientele here, you understand. People of quality." The words hung in the air like poison. Zahara felt them settle on her skin, familiar as dust. How many times had she heard similar words whispered about her as she cleaned suites, changed sheets, scrubbed toilets? But this time was different. This time, she wasn't wearing a uniform that marked her as invisible. "Quality," Zahara repeated softly, "is about more than appearance, Ms. Sterling. It's about character." Alicia's face flushed red. "Security!" she snapped, pointing at Zahara. This woman is harassing me. Please remove her from the premises immediately. Two guards appeared, their faces professionally blank. Zahara recognized one. He'd always been kind to the cleaning staff, sharing his coffee during late shifts. Now, he wouldn't meet her eyes. "Ma'am," one guard said, "please come with us." Zahara took a step back, dignity intact. Her eyes swept the lobby one last time, the gleaming floors she'd polished, the brass fixtures she'd shined, the corners she'd dusted in the dead of night. Then she looked directly at Alicia Sterling, whose triumph blazed across her face like a neon sign. "This won't be the last time you see me here," Zahara said quietly, her words carrying in the hushed lobby. She turned and walked toward the door, her head high, her steps measured against the marble floor that knew her better than anyone else in the room. Behind her, Alicia's laugh echoed off the chandelier. "Don't forget, service entrance next time, honey. It's where you belong." The next morning, sunlight streamed through the hotel's towering windows, casting long shadows across the polished floor. Zahara stood before the executive elevator, her shoulders squared, a slim leather folder tucked under her arm. The morning rush filled the lobby with suited executives and wealthy tourists, their chatter echoing off the marble walls. She pressed the elevator button, but before the doors could open, a familiar voice cut through the air like broken glass. "What do you think you're doing?" Alicia Sterling's heels clicked rapidly across the floor as she stormed over. "You have some nerve showing up here again." Zahara turned slowly, her expression calm. "I have a scheduled meeting on the executive floor." "A meeting?" Alicia's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby guests. "Don't make me laugh. Security!" She snapped her fingers. "This woman is trespassing." Again. Two security guards approached uncertainly. Behind the front desk, a young intern pulled out their phone, fingers hovering over the record button. "I am not trespassing," Zahara stated firmly. "Check the visitor log. I have an appointment." Alicia's face twisted with rage. "You really think anyone would believe that? Look at you, standing there like you own the place." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a vicious hiss. "Women like you clean rooms, not sit in boardrooms." The lobby had grown quiet, guests pausing to watch the scene unfold. A mother pulled her children closer. A businessman lowered his newspaper. "Ms. Sterling," Zahara said evenly, "step back. You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" Alicia laughed, high and sharp. "You're the one pretending to be someone you're not. Playing dress-up in that cheap coat? Thinking you can fool anyone?" The intern's phone was up now, recording steadily as Alicia's voice grew louder. "I've worked in hotels for 20 years, Alicia continued, jabbing a finger toward Zahara's chest. "I know your type. You think if you put on nice clothes and speak properly, people won't see what you really are?" Zahara didn't flinch. "And what exactly am I, Ms. Sterling?" "A fraud." Alicia spat the word. "A nobody trying to be somebody. Probably some cleaning lady who got ideas above her station." Whispers rippled through the growing crowd. The security guards shifted uncomfortably, but didn't intervene. "I won't ask again," Zahara said quietly. "Step back and let me attend my meeting." Something in Zahara's calm seemed to push Alicia over the edge. Her face flushed dark red, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "How dare you!" The sound of the slap cracked like lightning through the lobby. Gasps echoed off the walls. Zahara's head snapped to the side, her cheek burning where Alicia's hand had struck. The leather folder slipped from her grasp, papers spilling across the floor. Behind the desk, the intern's hands shook as they kept filming. An elderly woman clutched her pearls. A small child started crying. "Get her out!" Alicia screamed at security. "Drag her out if you have to!" The guards moved forward, grabbing Zahara's arms. She twisted in their grip, not fighting, but refusing to go quietly. "Take your hands off me," she commanded, her voice carrying across the silent lobby. "I have done nothing wrong." "Nothing wrong?" Alicia's laugh was hysterical now. "You're trespassing, impersonating a guest, disrupting business." She bent down, snatching up one of the scattered papers. "What's this supposed to be? Some fake documents you printed at the library?" Zahara struggled against the guard's hold. "Those are private business documents. Put them down." "Private business documents?" Alicia waved the paper mockingly. "Probably printed them off at some copy shop, thinking you could fool us." She ripped the paper in half, letting the pieces flutter to the floor. "That," Zahara said, her voice deadly quiet, "was your last mistake." The guards tightened their grip, but Zahara stood her ground. Blood rushed to the red handprint on her cheek, but her eyes were clear and steady. "Get her out through the back," Alicia ordered. "And make sure she understands. If she shows up here again, we're calling the police." As the guards dragged Zahara toward the service entrance, she kept her eyes locked on Alicia. No tears, no pleading, just that same unwavering stare that seemed to see right through the manager's expensive suit to something hollow underneath. The crowd parted as they passed, faces a mix of shock, discomfort, and shame. Nobody moved to help. Nobody spoke up. They just watched as security muscled Zahara through the kitchen doors, past startled staff and clattering dishes. Behind the front desk, the interns' hands trembled as they stopped recording. They stared at their phone screen, at the 3-minute video that had captured everything: the slap, the cruel words, the ripped documents, the rough handling. Their finger hovered over the share button. With a quick glance to make sure no one was watching, they pressed upload. The caption typed itself almost automatically. She tried to go upstairs. They didn't know who she was. The video began processing, a progress bar slowly filling across the screen. In the kitchen, pots clattered, and voices rose as Zahara was escorted through the back halls she once cleaned. Above, in the executive offices, a meeting room sat empty, waiting for a guest who would never arrive. The glow of Zahara's laptop screen lit her face in the darkness of her home office. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars, but her attention was fixed on the video playing for what felt like the 100th time. Slap! The sound made her flinch, even now. She touched her cheek where Alicia's hand had struck her, the skin still tender. On screen, she watched herself stumble, saw the papers scatter across the marble floor. The footage was shaky but clear, captured perfectly by the young intern whose hands must have been trembling. Her phone buzzed constantly beside her, notifications pouring in as the video spread like wildfire across social media. Hotel assault was trending. So was the Chatun Justice for Zahara, though none of them knew her name yet. "Breaking news tonight," a reporter's voice cut through her thoughts as she switched to a local news channel's website. Shocking footage from the Grand Plaza Hotel shows an alleged racist incident involving hotel management. The clip played again, this time with millions of viewers watching. Comments flooded in beneath the video. "This is disgusting. Who does that manager think she is? I'll never stay at Grand Plaza again. That poor woman kept her dignity while being assaulted. She's my hero." Zahara scrolled through dozens of similar messages, her expression unreadable. A text notification popped up from her lawyer. "It's everywhere. Their PR team is in crisis mode. Should we move forward?" "Not yet," she typed back. "Let it build." She opened another tab, where a business news site was covering the story. Luxury hotel chain faces, backlash over viral assault video. Below was a statement from the hotel's corporate office. "We are aware of the incident and are conducting a thorough investigation. The Grand Plaza Hotel chain does not condone discrimination or violence of any kind. Her phone rang, a local civil rights organization wanting to organize a protest. She let it go to voicemail. This wasn't about protests. Not yet. Switching back to social media, she found new footage being shared. Someone had recorded the growing crowd outside the hotel. Dozens of people held signs, "Boycott Grand Plaza," and "Stop Racist Violence," and "Fire Alicia Sterling." Yes, they had identified her already. The internet worked fast. Alicia's name and photo were everywhere, along with her LinkedIn profile and work history. Someone had even found her old yearbook photos. Inside the hotel, security footage leaked by another employee showed Alicia in her office that afternoon, pacing as she talked to other managers. "I did what I had to do." Her voice rang clear through the phone camera's microphone. She was trying to sneak onto the executive floor. What was I supposed to do? Let her wander around stealing things? But hitting her? A colleague's voice, worried. "Alicia, this looks really bad." "Please," Alicia scoffed. "I protected our brand. Our guests don't pay premium rates to share space with people like that. The board will understand." More footage appeared hourly. Hotel staff who witnessed the incident gave anonymous interviews. Former employees shared their own stories of discrimination. Someone started a petition demanding Alicia's termination. It had 500,000 signatures and climbing. Zahara opened her email. Hundreds of messages from journalists requesting interviews, activists offering support, lawyers proposing lawsuits. She left them unanswered. A notification alerted her to a new post. Camera phone footage of Alicia leaving the hotel that evening, hurrying to her car while protesters shouted, "Shame!" She looked smaller somehow, her designer suit less impressive, her carefully styled hair falling loose as she ducked into the back seat. The timestamp showed it was just minutes ago. Zahara checked the time. Nearly midnight. She'd been watching this unfold for hours. On her second monitor, financial news scrolled past. Hotel chain stock drops 12% amid viral video controversy. Another tab showed cancellations pouring in. Celebrities publicly denouncing the brand. Travel sites marking the chain with warning labels. Her phone buzzed again. Another news alert. This time it was an exclusive interview with a former Grand Plaza housekeeper, tears in her eyes as she described years of mistreatment. "What happened in that video? That's how they see us. That's how they've always seen us." Zahara's hands clenched into fists. She remembered those years, the aching feet, the invisible status, the casual cruelty. How many times had she been treated like she was nothing? How many others still were? A new email appeared, marked urgent, from the hotel's board of directors. She didn't open it. Not yet. Instead, she pulled up the original video one more time, watched herself stand tall despite the slap, saw the dignity in her own eyes as security dragged her away, heard her final words to Alicia, "That was your last mistake." The video ended. Comments continued flooding in, shares multiplying by the thousands. Outside, the city hummed with nightlife, unaware that in this quiet home office, something massive was about to shift. Zahara closed her laptop slowly, the screen going dark. In the silence, she could hear her own steady breathing, feel her heartbeat calm and strong. Everything was in motion now. Years of planning, of waiting, of building in secret. It had all led to this moment. She stood, walking to her window. The hotel's distinctive silhouette rose against the night sky, its windows glowing like jewels. Soon, those lights would dim. Soon, everything would change. "Now," she whispered to her reflection in the glass, "I begin." The Grand Plaza Hotel's executive boardroom crackled with tension. Emergency lights cast harsh shadows across the faces of board members gathered around the massive mahogany table. Outside, Protest chants echoed up 40 stories. Our stock has dropped another 8% since markets opened, Barbara Chen, the CFO, reported. Her tablet displayed a sea of red numbers. Major investors are threatening to pull out. Richard Sterling, the CEO and Alicia's father, slammed his fist on the table. It's just a video. Since when do we let social media dictate corporate policy? Since that video got 50 million views overnight, said James Morton, head of PR. Dark circles under his eyes betrayed a sleepless night. Every major news outlet is running it. Celebrities are canceling events. We've lost 3 major conferences already. The door burst open. A young IT technician rushed in, face pale. Sir, we have a problem with the guest management system. Not now, Richard barked. We're handling a crisis. That's just it, sir. The technician's voice shook. The entire system it's gone dark. Silence fell over the room. Everyone knew what that meant. The proprietary software that managed everything from reservations to room service to security access, their competitive edge in luxury hospitality had never failed before. What do you mean, gone dark? Barbara demanded. Everything's shutting down, not just here, all properties worldwide. Reservations are disappearing, key cards aren't working, billing systems are frozen. It's like someone pulled the plug on the entire network. Richard's face reddened. Get our software team on it. Call the developers. We tried, sir. No one can access the core programming. It's locked us out completely. Phones started buzzing around the table as reports flooded in from properties across the globe. Dubai, London, Singapore, everywhere, the same chaos. In the lobby below, guests crowded the front desk. Room keys had stopped working. Restaurant orders vanished. The elegant digital displays that usually showed event schedules now displayed only error messages. Alicia Sterling paced behind the desk, her designer heels clicking frantically on marble. Try it again, she snapped at a clerk attempting to check in an elderly couple. The system won't respond, the clerk said. Nothing works. Then do it manually. Write it down. Ms. Sterling, the clerk's voice dropped to a whisper. We don't have paper forms anymore. Everything's digital. More guests arrived, angry and confused. The lobby filled with frustrated voices. Without the system, staff couldn't even access room numbers or guest histories. Upstairs, the board meeting had devolved into chaos. Our entire operation runs on this software, Barbara was saying. Without it, we're basically a building with beds. We can't even process payments. The IT technician's phone buzzed. His eyes widened as he read the message. Sir, the development team just found something. In the source code. He turned his phone to show them. Hidden in the programming was a digital signature, encrypted but now visible. Original System Architecture by ZE. ZE? Richard frowned. Who the hell is ZE? In the corner, James Morton went very still. Oh, God, he whispered. The woman from yesterday. The one Alicia. He couldn't finish the sentence. Barbara pulled up the viral video on her tablet, froze the frame on the woman's face. Someone find out who she is. Now. But their computers had gone dark too. Screens throughout the building displayed the same message. Access denied. In the lobby, guests were leaving in droves, rolling suitcases across marble floors. Social media exploded with new hashtags. Grand Plaza Chaos and System Meltdown. News crews arrived, broadcasting live from outside. In a stunning development, the luxury hotel chain already under fire for yesterday's viral assault video is now experiencing what appears to be a catastrophic technical failure. Alicia watched helplessly as years of carefully maintained appearances crumbled. Without the system's guidance, staff forgot preferences, mixed up orders, lost track of schedules. The seamless luxury experience that justified their premium rates vanished. How could this happen? She demanded of no one in particular. We had the best system in the industry. An elderly housekeeper nearby muttered something under her breath. What was that? Alicia snapped. The woman met her eyes steadily. I said, maybe you should have asked who built it. Miles away, in her modest apartment, Zahara Ellis sat in her favorite armchair, watching multiple news feeds at once. She held a cup of tea, still hot, its steam rising like victory. On one screen, financial analysts debated the hotel chain's future. Another showed guests dragging luggage through revolving doors, abandoning their stays. A third displayed the company's stock price in free fall. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the board, more desperate than the last. They'd figured out her initials in the code. Now they wanted to talk. She set the phone aside, unanswered. Let them sweat a little longer. Let them remember how it felt to be powerless, invisible, at someone else's mercy. The system she'd built, the one they'd stolen, had been more than software. It was her vision of hospitality, where every guest felt valued, where every worker had dignity, where efficiency met humanity. They'd taken it, stripped it of her name, and used it to profit while grinding down people like her. Now they knew. The invisible woman they'd dismissed, the housekeeper they'd mocked, the innovator they'd betrayed. She'd been the architect of their success all along. On screen, Richard Sterling faced reporters, his confidence cracking. We are working to resolve this technical issue. Zahara sipped her tea, savoring its warmth. Now they'll remember, she whispered. Who built it? The Grand Plaza's executive boardroom had transformed into a war room. Laptops covered every surface, their screens displaying the same frustrating message. Access denied. IT specialists huddled in corners, speaking in hushed, worried tones. Try it again, Richard Sterling commanded, his tie loosened and jacket discarded. Dark sweat stains showed under his arms. A tech worker shook her head. Sir, we've attempted every override code. The system isn't just locked, it's responding to new commands. Someone's actively controlling it. Barbara Chen's phone buzzed. She'd been fielding calls non-stop for hours. Our Dubai property just lost a royal family booking. Singapore reports 60% of guests have checked out. London. She paused, rubbing her temples. London's considering shutting down completely. Who could have this level of access? James Morton demanded. We own the software outright. A young programmer cleared his throat. Actually, sir, we may have found something. He projected his screen onto the wall. We've been digging through archived code versions. The system's core architecture. It wasn't developed in-house. It was purchased from a startup called InnoServe 5 years ago. I remember, Richard said. Some Silicon Valley outfit. We rebranded it as our proprietary system. InnoServe was a shell company, sir. 1 employee, no office space. But their software was revolutionary. It didn't just manage bookings, it learned guest preferences, predicted staffing needs, even calculated optimal room assignments based on hundreds of factors. Nobody had seen anything like it. Barbara frowned. Who owned InnoServe? That's just it. The programmer pulled up incorporation documents. The founder used initials only, ZE. Same signature we found in the code. Alicia burst into the room, her usual poise shattered. Have you seen Twitter? We're trending worldwide. Our Grand Plaza meltdown is everywhere. James pulled up social media feeds. The viral slapping video had spawned thousands of memes. Guests posted videos of chaos in hotel lobbies across the globe. Business analysts debated whether the chain could survive. Then something new started trending. Look at this, Barbara said, her voice tight. She read from her phone. The truth about luxury hospitality's greatest innovation. How a Housekeeper Revolutionized an Industry. It's from Tech Insider. The article appeared on the wall screen. Below the headline was a photo of Zahara Ellis, not the woman they'd humiliated in the lobby, but a powerful executive in a sophisticated suit, standing before a wall of patents and awards. Richard's face went pale as Barbara read aloud. For years, the hospitality industry's most sophisticated management system was credited to major hotel chains. Today, its true creator steps forward. Zahara Ellis, former housekeeper turned tech innovator. Working night shifts while raising a daughter alone, Ellis taught herself programming and developed revolutionary software that would transform luxury service worldwide. The room fell silent. Security footage from yesterday played in a corner screen. Alicia's hand striking Zahara's face, the crowd's shocked reaction. "That's impossible," Alicia whispered. "She was nothing. A nobody." The programmer spoke up again. "Her code. It's brilliant. The way it integrates human behavior patterns with operational efficiency. I've never seen anything like it. Only someone who truly understood both hospitality and technology could have created this." More articles flooded in. Forbes, the invisible genius behind modern luxury. Wall Street Journal, how hotels stole a housekeeper's innovation. Social media exploded with new hashtags. Chandra Zahara Ellis, Justice for Zahara. Chuck Who Built. A notification popped up on every screen in the room. CNN was about to air an exclusive interview. The board watched, transfixed, as Zahara Ellis appeared on screen. She sat poised in a simple but elegant office, her presence commanding. The interviewer leaned forward eagerly. "Ms. Ellis, you've been called the hidden architect of modern hospitality. Why reveal yourself now?" Zahara's voice was calm, measured. Innovation doesn't just come from boardrooms. It comes from people who understand the work at every level. I spent 16 years making beds, cleaning bathrooms, learning what guests and staff truly needed. That knowledge became the foundation of everything I built. And the hotel chain that claimed credit for your system? They didn't just claim credit. They dismissed me when I tried to pitch it properly. Called my ideas unrealistic. Then they acquired my software through back channels, erased my name, and fired me for suggesting improvements to their operations. She smiled slightly. But they never understood the system's full capabilities, or that its creator still held the master key. The interviewer nodded. "Your name is trending worldwide. People are calling you an inspiration. To every housekeeper, janitor, kitchen worker, to everyone who's been told they don't belong in the boardroom, this is your vindication too. Excellence doesn't depend on privilege. Innovation can come from anywhere. And sometimes," she added, her eyes seeming to stare directly at the boardroom, "the person you dismissed today might own your company tomorrow." In the boardroom, phones began ringing simultaneously. Investors demanded answers. Partners threatened to pull out. The stock price hit another record low. "She's destroying us," Alicia said numbly. Barbara Chen stood up. "No, we destroyed ourselves. We stole from her, humiliated her, and assaulted her on camera. Now everyone knows." On screen, Zahara's interview continued, her following growing by the minute. Every word she spoke was quoted, shared, celebrated. The housekeeper they'd slapped had become the face of innovation, dignity, and justice. Not a nobody began trending next. Hotel workers worldwide shared their own stories of discrimination and dismissal. Former employees came forward with evidence of similar incidents. The Grand Plaza's carefully maintained image of luxury and sophistication crumbled by the minute. The CNN interview continued, Zahara's composure unwavering as the host leaned forward with genuine interest. "Tell us about your journey, Ms. Ellis. How did someone go from housekeeping to revolutionizing an entire industry? Zahara's eyes grew distant, remembering. It wasn't a straight path. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can rebuild. The scene dissolved into her memories, 15 years earlier. A much younger Zahara, huddled with her 4-year-old daughter Sarah, in their beaten-up Toyota Corolla, parked behind a grocery store. Their temporary home after the eviction. "We lived in that car for 3 months, Zahara narrated. "I'd wake up early, wash up in gas station bathrooms, drop Sarah at a neighbor's house who watched her for cheap, then head to my housekeeping shift." The memory shifted to the hotel's stark back hallways. Young Zahara pushed a heavy cleaning cart, her uniform already soaked with sweat at 7 a.m. Her supervisor, Mrs. Graves, stood over her with a clipboard. "Faster," Mrs. Graves barked. "Luxury guests don't wait. 16 rooms today? No excuses." The work was backbreaking, present-day Zahara explained. But it taught me everything about how hotels really function. I saw the gaps between what management thought happened and what actually happened on the ground. Another flashback? Zahara in the break room at midnight, surrounded by dog-eared textbooks. Hospitality management, computer programming basics, business administration. Her daughter slept on a makeshift bed of chairs while Zahara studied. "I couldn't afford college," she continued. "So I taught myself. The library had free computers. YouTube had free coding tutorials. I took every online course I could find." The interviewer nodded. "But how did you manage to develop such sophisticated software while working full-time?" "One piece at a time. I'd notice problems during my shifts. Inefficient room assignments, redundant tasks, guest preferences being lost between departments. At night, I'd write code to solve those specific issues." The memories continued flowing. Young Zahara scribbling diagrams on the back of cleaning schedules, testing early versions of her system on a second-hand laptop, watching guests' patterns, noting their habits, understanding their unstated needs. The breakthrough came when I realized hotels were focusing on the wrong things, Zahara explained. They thought luxury meant expensive furniture and fancy amenities. But true luxury is anticipation, knowing what guests need before they ask. That comes from understanding human behavior, something you learn intimately when you're invisible to the people you serve. Another scene unfolded. Zahara presenting her prototype to hotel management. She wore her best thrift store suit, hands trembling slightly as she opened her laptop. "I can improve our efficiency by 40%, young Zahara said eagerly. "The system learns from every interaction, builds guest profiles automatically, even predicts staffing needs based on—" "That's enough!" The manager cut her off with a dismissive wave. "You're a housekeeper. Stay in your lane. We have actual tech consultants for this sort of thing?" Present-day Zahara's voice hardened slightly. 2 months later, they announced their revolutionary new system. My exact design, but with someone else's name on it. When I spoke up, they fired me for creating a hostile work environment. The interviewer's eyes widened. "What did you do then?" "I started over. Created InnoServe as a shell company. Refined the system until it was unbeatable. Then I let hotels compete to buy it, including the one that had stolen my prototype." The memories shifted to Zahara, working from a tiny apartment, coding late into the night. Sarah did homework nearby, occasionally bringing her mother coffee. "My daughter watched me build it all," Zahara said softly. "She learned that dignity isn't given. Sometimes you have to code it into existence yourself." Scenes flashed by. Zahara filing patents. Meeting with investors who never knew her background. Hotels worldwide adopting her system, praising its genius, while never suspecting its creator had once cleaned their rooms. "The software spread because it worked," she explained. "It understood hotels from the ground up, from the housekeeper's cart to the presidential suite. Every feature came from real experience, not theoretical models. The interviewer gestured to a tablet displaying current headlines about the hotel chain's crisis. And now their entire operation depends on your system. Ironic, isn't it? Zahara's smile held no malice, only quiet satisfaction. They never suspected the nobody they dismissed had become essential to their success. More memories played. Zahara quietly buying company shares, attending stockholder meetings in the back row, unrecognized, watching her former supervisors praise their system's innovation. "I could have revealed myself years ago," she acknowledged, "but I wanted to prove something bigger, that excellence can come from anywhere, that the people you ignore might be secretly changing your world." The interviewer studied her thoughtfully. "Why didn't you reveal yourself before?" Zahara's response was measured, yet carried the weight of years of invisibility. "Because they never looked at me long enough to see what I could be. They saw a uniform, not a visionary. A servant, not a creator. Their blindness gave me the greatest advantage of all, the freedom to build something revolutionary while they weren't watching." The CNN interview set off a chain reaction. Within hours, Zahara's legal team called a press conference at the Marriott across the street from Grand Plaza Hotel. Camera crews swarmed the conference room as Zahara took the podium, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. "Today, I'm not just here to tell my story," she began, her voice steady. "I'm here to expose a systematic theft of intellectual property that goes to the highest levels of hotel management." The room fell silent. Zahara opened a leather portfolio, removing a stack of documents. "In 2008, while working as a housekeeper at Ellis Grand, I developed a revolutionary guest management system. I presented it to hotel management, believing in their integrity." She paused, letting the words sink in. That trust was misplaced. Across the street, in the Grand Plaza Hotel executive boardroom, Marcus Sterling loosened his tie as he watched the live broadcast. His sister Alicia stood behind him, her manicured nails digging into the leather chair. Zahara held up the first document, a dated presentation proposal. "This is my original pitch, submitted through proper channels. Note the timestamp and digital signature." She clicked a remote, and the screen behind her displayed email correspondence. 2 weeks after my presentation, I was terminated. The stated reason was creating a hostile work environment. The real reason? She advanced to the next slide. This internal memo. The projected email showed Marcus Sterling's name. Housekeeper's software proposal. This is exactly what we need. Strip out her name, repackage it under my division. HR will handle her removal. Gasps rippled through the press room. Reporters' fingers flew across keyboards. "But Mr. Sterling made one crucial mistake," Zahara continued. "He didn't understand the code well enough to alter it completely." She projected side-by-side comparisons of her original code and the hotel's current system. "The base architecture remains identical. My digital fingerprints are embedded in every line." In the boardroom, Marcus Sterling's face had gone ashen. Board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats, exchanging worried glances. "The evidence doesn't stop there," Zahara pressed on. She produced a thick binder. "These are my original design documents, dated and notarized. Compare them to the hotel's current system documentation." She pointed to specific sections. "Word-for-word copies, down to my personal notations about guest psychology and service timing." Alicia's smugness had vanished entirely. She grabbed her brother's shoulder. "Tell me you can fight this?" she hissed. Marcus remained silent, watching his career implode on live television. Zahara's next revelation hit even harder. "I have here signed witness statements from 3 former IT department employees. She held up sworn affidavits. They confirm that Mr. Sterling ordered them to scrub my name from all documentation and backdate new credentials showing him as the sole creator. The press room erupted with questions. Zahara raised her hand for silence. But perhaps most damning is this. She played an audio recording. Marcus Sterling's voice filled the room. Get rid of her. A housekeeper can't prove anything against an executive. Who would believe her? In the boardroom, several board members stood up, distancing themselves from Marcus. One reached for his phone, likely calling legal counsel. I filed patents for my system before ever approaching the hotel, Zahara explained. Patents they chose to ignore when they stole my work. Patents that have been upheld through multiple legal reviews. She projected documentation of her patent filings, predating the hotel's implementation by months. For years, I watched this company profit from my innovation while I rebuilt my life. I watched Mr. Sterling accept awards for his revolutionary system. I watched them expand globally, using my code as their foundation. The cameras caught every word as she continued. I didn't speak up immediately because I needed time. Time to document everything. Time to build an airtight case. And time to understand exactly how deep this corruption went. In the Grand Plaza Hotel lobby, guests had gathered around television screens, watching the exposure unfold. Some were filming the staff's reactions on their phones. The theft of my intellectual property wasn't just about software, Zahara said, her voice gaining strength. It was about power, about who gets to be an innovator, about whose ideas are valued, and whose are stolen. She held up one final document. This is a cease and desist order, effective immediately. The hotel's right to use my system is hereby revoked pending full legal review. The board members were now openly glaring at Marcus Sterling, who had loosened his tie completely and was furiously texting his lawyers. Alicia paced behind him, her designer heels clicking on the marble floor. Reporters had begun gathering in the hotel lobby, shouting questions up at the executive floor. I don't seek vengeance, Zahara concluded at her press conference. I seek justice. Not just for myself, but for every worker whose contributions have been stolen, whose innovation has been suppressed, whose dignity has been denied. The press swarmed forward with questions. Mr. Sterling received the Innovation in Hospitality Award for this system. Will he be stripped of that honor? How much revenue has the hotel chain generated using your stolen software? Are there criminal charges pending? Zahara stood firm at the podium, answering each question with composed precision, while across the street, the empire built on her stolen dreams began to crumble. The mahogany-paneled private dining room at the Metropolitan Club felt like a war room. Richard Sterling sat at the head of the table, his silver hair immaculate, his tailored suit a armor of wealth. Alicia Sterling paced beside him, her heels muffled by the thick carpet. "This is a disaster!" Alicia hissed, checking her phone again. "The stock is falling. Guests are canceling. That witch is destroying everything." Richard sipped his scotch, ice cubes clinking. "Calm yourself, Alicia. Hysteria won't solve this." He gestured to the empty chair. "Sit. We need to think strategically." Marcus burst through the door, his usual polished appearance disheveled. His tie hung loose and sweat stained his collar. "The lawyers say we're exposed. The patents are solid. She's got us." "Sit down, Marcus," Richard commanded. The Sterling siblings obeyed, like chastised children before a stern parent. "Now, let's discuss how we contain this unfortunate situation." A waiter appeared with fresh drinks. Richard waited until the door closed behind him. "The problem isn't the patents or the theft. Those are technicalities. The real threat is the narrative she's creating." Alicia's perfectly manicured nails drummed the table. "What do you mean?" "She's positioning herself as the wronged genius, The humble housekeeper who revolutionized an industry. Richard's voice dripped contempt. The public loves an underdog story. We need to change that narrative. Marcus loosened his tie further. How? She has evidence. Evidence isn't everything. Richard pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. I have connections at several major publications. We can plant stories, create doubt about her character. Alicia leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. What kind of stories? Think about it. She was a housekeeper who spent years plotting this revenge. That's not the behavior of a stable person. Richard's smile was cold. We paint her as obsessed, dangerous, unhinged. But the evidence, Marcus started, will be overshadowed by questions about her mental state. Richard turned to Alicia. You fired her. What was in her personnel file? Alicia's red lips curved into a cruel smile. She had several complaints about overstepping, trying to access restricted areas, bothering guests with suggestions about service improvements. Perfect. Richard began typing notes. We spin that as erratic behavior, a pattern of instability that led to her termination. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. What about the patents? The code comparisons? We muddy the waters. Suggest she's manipulated the documents, that her proof is manufactured by someone desperate for attention and revenge. Richard paused, considering. We might even suggest she stole the initial concepts from elsewhere. Alicia's eyes lit up. From Marcus's original work? Precisely. Richard pointed at her with approval. We claim she accessed his early designs while working as a housekeeper. That's why there are similarities. The siblings exchanged glances, hope returning to their faces. I have contacts at the Wall Street Journal, Richard continued. They're always hungry for a story about tech fraud. We feed them anonymous tips, suggest there's more to this than meets the eye. He pulled out a leather notebook, writing quickly. We'll need multiple angles. Mental instability, professional jealousy, a history of erratic behavior. We paint her as a disgruntled ex-employee who spent years plotting revenge. Alicia smiled, remembering how she'd slapped Zahara. She did seem unhinged in the lobby that day, refusing to leave, causing a scene. Exactly. Richard nodded. We use that video to our advantage. Show how she deliberately provoked confrontation, wanted to create viral content to support her false claims. Marcus drained his whiskey. What about the IT staff who signed statements? Disgruntled former employees, obviously, probably paid off. Richard waved dismissively. We'll have our PR team suggest they're part of a coordinated attack on the company. A waiter entered with fresh drinks. They waited in tense silence until he left. I'll activate my media contacts tonight, Richard continued. By morning, the first stories will break. Questions about her stability, her motivations, her credibility. He turned to Marcus. You need to prepare a statement. Express shock and hurt that someone would make such false accusations. Emphasize your history of innovation, your awards, your reputation. Marcus nodded, some of his confidence returning. I can do that. Alicia, Richard focused on her. You'll need to appear sympathetic. Express regret about the lobby incident, but frame it as you protecting guests from an increasingly aggressive person with a vendetta against the hotel. Alicia straightened her blazer, practicing her concerned expression. I was afraid for guest safety. She seemed unstable, desperate. Perfect. Richard raised his glass. We fight fire with fire. She wanted to tell her story. We'll tell ours louder. They clinked glasses, conspirators sealed in their plan. Across town, in her modest apartment, Zahara's phone buzzed with news alerts. The first headline appeared, Questions arise about hotel software claimant's mental state. Another, Former colleagues report disturbing pattern of behavior from ex-housekeeper. And another, Hotel innovation pioneer shocked by false claims of theft. Zahara read each one, her face unchanged. She'd expected this, planned for it. The desperate always showed their teeth before the final fall. "So the rats are finally showing their teeth," she whispered, setting down her phone. The articles kept coming, each more vicious than the last. Character assassination dressed as journalism, lies wrapped in respectable mastheads. The game was escalating, exactly as she'd predicted it would. Zahara sat in her home office, surrounded by stacks of documents and testimonies. Her laptop screen glowed with dozens of open tabs, each one a new attack on her character. She didn't flinch at the headlines anymore. Instead, she reached for a worn leather notebook, its pages filled with 16 years of careful observations and collected evidence. "Time to show them what an unstable housekeeper can do," she muttered, pulling out her phone. She dialed a familiar number. "Maria, it's time. Call the others." Within hours, her modest living room filled with familiar faces. Former housekeepers, kitchen staff, maintenance workers, people who'd scrubbed floors alongside her, who'd shared quiet conversations in break rooms, who'd witnessed years of abuse and discrimination. "They think they can bury the truth," Zahara addressed the group, her voice steady. "But there are too many of us, too many stories, too many witnesses." Maria, a former head housekeeper with 25 years of service, stepped forward. "I have the emails, the ones where they ordered us to work off the clock during special events." Jorge, who'd worked maintenance for 3 decades, pulled out a USB drive. "And I kept the security footage. The times they made us use dangerous chemicals without protection. The injuries they covered up. One by one, they shared their evidence. Photos of moldy staff quarters, pay stubs showing systematic wage theft, written warnings given to workers who dared complain about discrimination. "They called us family," said Carmen, her voice bitter. "Family doesn't treat family like this." Zahara nodded, typing rapidly on her laptop. "And now the world will know." They worked through the night, organizing evidence, recording testimonies. Each person's story added another layer to the damning picture of corporate abuse and systemic exploitation. At dawn, Zahara launched their counterattack. First came the email dump. Thousands of internal communications revealing years of calculated discrimination. Managers joking about keeping the help in their place. HR reports buried to protect abusive supervisors. Financial documents showing millions in stolen wages. Then came the videos. Security footage of injured workers being forced to continue their shifts. Hidden recordings of management meetings where they laughed about exploiting undocumented staff. A particularly damning clip showed Marcus Sterling in the executive lounge, drunk on expensive whiskey, mocking Zahara's original pitch. "A maid with a computer program," his slurred voice echoed through social media. "Like anyone would believe she could create something this sophisticated. These people should stick to cleaning toilets." The impact was immediate and devastating. Breaking: luxury hotel chain accused of systematic worker exploitation. Hotel Gate whistleblowers reveal. Years of abuse. Justice for Zahara trends. Worldwide news vans surrounded the hotel. Reporters fought for interviews with former staff members. Each hour brought new revelations, new testimonies, new evidence of corruption. Maria appeared on CNN, describing how she'd been fired after reporting sexual harassment by a senior manager. Jorge shared his story on MSNBC, detailing how the company had threatened to report workers to immigration when they complained about unsafe conditions. Social media exploded with support. Hotel workers across the country began sharing their own stories of abuse and discrimination. The hashtag #RunchDirtyYourDuty Stand with Zahara became a rallying cry for labor rights activists. Outside the hotel, crowds gathered. What started as a small group of protesters swelled into hundreds, then thousands. They carried signs reading, "Believe Black Women," and "Workers Deserve Dignity." Union organizers set up tables, collecting more testimonies from current and former employees. Zahara Ellis didn't just create a computer system, a protest leader shouted through a megaphone. She created hope for every worker who's ever been silenced, every innovator who's ever been stolen from, every person who's ever been told to know their place. The crowd roared in response. Justice for Zahara! Justice for workers! Inside her apartment, Zahara watched the coverage with her former colleagues. Tears flowed freely as they saw their stories finally being heard, their truth finally being believed. "This isn't just about me anymore," Zahara said softly. "This is about every person who's ever been invisible, every worker who's ever swallowed their pride to keep their job, every dreamer who's ever been told they're reaching too high." Maria squeezed her hand. "You gave us all a voice." On the TV, Richard Sterling attempted damage control, struggling to speak over protesters' chants. His usual smooth confidence cracked as reporters bombarded him with questions about the evidence. "These allegations are... We take these matters very seriously," he stammered, sweat visible on his forehead. The camera cut to Alicia Sterling being escorted to her car, her face hidden behind large sunglasses, protesters following her with signs and chants. Her brother Marcus was nowhere to be seen. Sources reported he hadn't left his penthouse in days. Outside the hotel's grand entrance, where Zahara had once been humiliated, the crowd continued to grow. Hotel workers from across the city joined the protest, many still in their uniforms. They formed a sea of raised fists and determined faces, their voices united in a rhythmic chant that echoed off the building's marble walls. "Justice for Zahara! Justice for workers!" The mahogany doors of the executive boardroom burst open. Zahara Ellis strode in, flanked by a team of lawyers carrying thick folders. The board members, already tense from their emergency session, jolted at her entrance. Richard Sterling rose from his chair, his usually composed demeanor cracking. "This is a private meeting. Security." "Sit down, Richard," Zahara said quietly, but with unmistakable authority. "You'll want to hear this." Alicia Sterling, looking pale and drawn, shrank in her seat. Her brother Marcus sat beside her, his expensive suit wrinkled from sleepless nights. The other board members exchanged nervous glances as Zahara's legal team distributed documents. "The hotel's stock has dropped 60% in 3 days," Zahara began, standing at the head of the table, a position that had always been Richard's. "Your largest investors are pulling out. The brand is toxic, and your proprietary system, my system, remains offline. We're handling the situation," Richard snapped, though his voice trembled slightly. "This meeting is to discuss emergency measures." "The emergency," Zahara cut in, "is over." She nodded to her lead attorney, who opened his briefcase. "For the past 5 years, while you were stealing my work and destroying lives, I was building something else. A holding company. One that has been quietly buying shares in your parent corporation." The color drained from Richard's face. Marcus dropped his pen, and it clattered across the polished table. "As of 9 o'clock this morning," Zahara continued, "my company completed its acquisition of controlling interest in Global Luxury Holdings. I own 51% of your parent company." The boardroom erupted. Several members jumped to their feet, shouting about legal challenges and shareholder rights. Alicia looked like she might faint. "Impossible!" Richard slammed his fist on the table. "The board would have been notified of any major stock purchases." Zahara's lawyer stepped forward, spreading out ownership documents. The acquisitions were made through multiple shell companies, all legal and properly registered. Ms. Ellis now controls the majority stake. You can't do this, Marcus wheezed, tugging at his collar. The board won't recognize. The board, Zahara interrupted, doesn't have a choice. But please, challenge it in court. I'm sure the judges will be very interested in these. She pulled out another stack of papers. Emails between Richard Sterling and the Sterling siblings, planning their smear campaign against me. Phone records showing their coordination with tabloid journalists. Bank transfers proving they paid for false stories. Richard's face contorted. Those are private communications. Nothing is private when it involves corporate conspiracy, Richard. Zahara's voice was steel. You thought you could bury me with lies. Instead, you exposed yourselves. She walked slowly around the table, touching each chair as she passed. Chairs she'd once dusted as a housekeeper. You mocked me when I pitched my system, called me delusional, said a maid should know her place. Then you stole my work, gave Marcus the credit, and fired me for insubordination when I objected. Reaching Richard's seat, she leaned down. But you made a mistake. You thought because I was quiet, I was weak. Because I cleaned rooms, I couldn't be brilliant. Because I didn't fight back immediately, I would never fight back at all. The other board members stared at Richard, the implications sinking in. Their powerful chairman had conspired with the Sterlings, risking everything to protect their scheme. Richard, one of them asked slowly, is this true? Before he could answer, Zahara's lawyer projected emails onto the boardroom screen. There was Richard writing to Marcus. Keep your sister in line. If Ellis talks, we all go down. Another showed him organizing payments to tabloids. Plant the mental health angle. Make her look unstable. The evidence was devastating. Years of corruption exposed in black and white. Richard stood up so fast his chair crashed backward. You bitch! You've been planning this for years. Language, Richard, Zahara said calmly. That's no way to address your new CEO. The room fell silent. Even the lawyers stopped shuffling papers. Effective immediately, Zahara continued. I am assuming control of all operations. Richard Sterling, Alicia Sterling, and Marcus Sterling are suspended pending investigation into corporate fraud, discrimination, and conspiracy. Security appeared at the door. Not the hotel's usual team, but new officers hired by Zahara's company. They moved to escort the three conspirators out. You can't do this to me, Alicia shrieked, her composure finally shattering. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, Zahara replied. I watched you abuse staff for years. I saw you humiliate people just because you could. And yes, I felt your hand across my face last week. Alicia's eyes widened with dawning horror as security took her arm. The difference is, Zahara continued, I'm not going to slap back. I'm going to do something much worse. She smiled slightly. I'm going to make you irrelevant. As security led them toward the door, Zahara called out one last time. The three turned, Richard's face purple with rage, Marcus slumped in defeat, Alicia trembling with fear. Zahara stood tall at the head of the table, sunlight streaming through the windows behind her. You don't control this place anymore, she said clearly, finally speaking the words she'd waited years to say. I do. The boardroom doors closed behind them with a decisive click. The boardroom sat in stunned silence. The remaining board members stared at their folders, avoiding eye contact with each other and their new CEO. The gravity of what had just happened settled over them like a heavy fog. Zahara took her seat at the head of the table, smoothing her modest blazer. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos that had preceded it. Now, she said, opening a sleek laptop, let's discuss the future of this company. One of the older directors, James Chen, cleared his throat. Ms. Ellis, regarding the Sterlings and Mr. Sterling, I assume you'll want their termination papers processed immediately? Not exactly. Zahara's fingers moved across her keyboard. The boardroom screen lit up with a new organizational chart. Richard and Marcus will face legal consequences for their fraud. The evidence has already been submitted to the SEC and District Attorney's Office. The board members shifted uncomfortably, no doubt wondering if they too would be implicated in the investigation. As for Alicia Sterling, Zahara continued, I have something different in mind. Another director, Patricia Walsh, leaned forward. Surely you're not keeping her after that public incident. The slap alone is grounds for immediate dismissal. The slap, Zahara said, touching her cheek briefly, taught me something important. Alicia Sterling isn't just cruel, she's ignorant. She needs an education in humanity. She pressed a button, and Alicia's new position appeared on the screen. Several board members gasped. Effective tomorrow, Alicia Sterling will be reassigned to guest services as a junior associate, Zahara announced. She'll work directly with guests, handle complaints, and assist with luggage if needed. That's quite a demotion, James said carefully. It's an opportunity, Zahara corrected him. For 6 months, she'll participate in mandatory training, empathy development, cultural sensitivity, workplace inclusion, and anti-discrimination practices. She'll learn what real hospitality means from the ground up. Patricia shook her head. She'll never accept that. She'll quit first. She can't afford to quit. Zahara pulled up another document. The legal settlement we're offering the Sterlings requires Alicia to complete this program, or she'll face charges as a co-conspirator in her brother's fraud. She chose her path when she helped them try to destroy my reputation. The board members exchanged glances, beginning to understand the careful strategy behind Zahara's moves. Besides, Zahara added, I believe in second chances. I had to fight for mine. Now, she'll have to earn hers. She stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the hotel entrance where she'd once been humiliated. This company has lost its way. We've forgotten that true luxury isn't about making guests feel superior. It's about making everyone feel valued. Turning back to the board, she projected a new series of slides. These are the changes we'll implement immediately. First, all executive bonuses will be tied to employee satisfaction and retention, not just profit margins. Second, we're establishing a worker development program, offering education and advancement opportunities to every employee, from housekeeping to maintenance. The CFO, David Murray, ran his fingers through his gray hair. Ms. Ellis, these programs will be expensive. They'll be investments, she corrected firmly. When I was a housekeeper here, I created a billion-dollar system because I understood what guests and workers really needed. Imagine what other brilliant minds we're wasting because we're too arrogant to look past uniforms and titles. She clicked to the next slide, revealing a comprehensive reorganization plan. Every department will have worker representatives on its management team. The people who actually do the work will have a voice in how it's done. The boardroom buzzed with murmurs, some excited, others nervous. Zahara let them process the magnitude of the changes coming. And, Alicia? James asked. How will you handle the publicity of keeping her employed? By telling the truth, Zahara replied, that this company is choosing transformation over retribution. That we believe people can change if given the right motivation and tools. She paused. And that sometimes the person who needs the lesson most is the one who thinks they have nothing left to learn. Just then, her phone buzzed. On the screen was a message from HR. Alicia Sterling had signed the agreement. She would begin her new position and her mandatory training tomorrow morning. Zahara looked around the boardroom, meeting each director's eyes. These were the same people who had ignored her ideas years ago. Now, they sat before her, hanging on her every word. Richard and Marcus chose fraud and theft to maintain their power, she said. They'll face justice for that. But Alicia's crime was pride. The kind of pride that makes someone think they can judge another person's worth by their job title or the color of their skin. She stood straight, her quiet authority filling the room. So let her learn what it means to serve others. Let her experience what it's like to be judged by every customer who walks through that door. And maybe, just maybe, she'll discover what I learned years ago. That true dignity comes from lifting others up, not pushing them down. The board members nodded slowly, beginning to see the wisdom in her approach. Zahara pressed a button, and a new logo appeared on the screen. The hotel's name, reimagined with a fresh design. This empire will be rebuilt, she declared, not on arrogance, but on dignity. The grand ballroom of the Grand Plaza Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Hundreds of journalists, industry leaders, and hotel workers packed the space, their conversations creating a steady hum beneath the crystal chandeliers. At the back of the room, a group of housekeepers, kitchen staff, and janitors huddled together, still wearing their work uniforms. They'd come straight from their shifts at nearby hotels. Maria Rodriguez, who had worked alongside Zahara for 12 years, clutched her hands together nervously. "I can't believe we're actually here," she whispered to Carlos, a longtime maintenance worker. In this room, as guests, the lights dimmed, and a hush fell over the crowd. Zahara Ellis stepped onto the stage, her modest blazer and practical shoes a stark contrast to the expensive suits in the front rows. She moved to the podium with quiet grace, surveying the room with warm eyes that lingered on her former co-workers. 20 years ago, she began, her voice clear and steady, I stood in this very room, but I wasn't at a podium. I was behind a cleaning cart, scrubbing champagne stains from the carpet at 3 in the morning. The room grew still. In the back, Maria wiped a tear from her cheek. I learned something in those years, Zahara continued. The true heart of hospitality isn't in the marble floors or the thread count of the sheets. It's in the hands that press those sheets, that polish that marble, that prepare the meals and maintain the systems that keep these buildings running. She gestured to the group of workers at the back. These are the architects of comfort, the engineers of experience. They've been called back of house, as if they belong in shadows. Today, that changes. With a nod, she triggered the screen behind her. The words, "The Back Hall Project," appeared in bold letters, accompanied by architectural renderings of training facilities and classroom spaces. I'm announcing a nationwide initiative that will transform the hospitality industry, Zahara declared. The Back Hall Project will create pathways for workers to become owners, innovators, and leaders. She clicked through slides showing modern training centers and classroom spaces. We're establishing education hubs in every major city. Workers will receive full scholarships for hospitality management, business administration, and technology training, while earning their full salaries. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. In the back, Carlos gripped the chair in front of him, his eyes wide. But this isn't just about education, Zahara continued. It's about ownership. The Back Hall Project will provide microloans and mentorship for workers who want to start their own businesses. Every participant will receive shares in our company, making them true stakeholders in this industry's future. She paused, letting the magnitude of the announcement sink in. And to ensure this program's success, I'm pledging $5 billion of my personal fortune as seed funding. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Several journalists scrambled to confirm the number on their phones. The first training center opens next month, right here, Zahara said. In the building where I was once told I didn't belong in the boardroom. She smiled. We're converting the executive dining room into classrooms. In the back of the room, Maria burst into tears. Other workers hugged each other, their emotions overwhelming their usual professional restraint. But this project isn't just about opportunity. Zahara's voice grew stronger. It's about recognition. Every hotel in our chain will now display a plaque listing the names of every worker who maintains it. No more invisibility. No more shadows. She gestured to the side of the stage, where a velvet curtain dropped to reveal a bronze plaque. Listed there were hundreds of names: housekeepers, maintenance workers, kitchen staff, dating back to the hotel's opening. "I see some of you crying," Zahara said softly. "I understand those tears. They're the same ones I shed when I was told to use the back entrance, when I was mocked for daring to dream bigger, when I was slapped for refusing to be invisible." She gripped the podium, her voice rising with passion. But today, those tears water the seeds of change. Today, we claim our place. Today, we turn the back hall into the front door. Zahara motioned to the back of the room. "Would my former co-workers please stand?" Maria, Carlos, and the others rose shakily to their feet. The crowd turned to look at them, really look at them, perhaps for the first time. "These people taught me everything I know about excellence," Zahara said. "Maria showed me how to turn chaos into order. Carlos taught me that every broken thing can be fixed with patience and the right tools. They are the professors of practical wisdom. And now they'll help lead this revolution." She raised her hand toward them. "Please, come forward." The group moved slowly through the parting crowd, their work shoes quiet on the polished floor. As they reached the stage, Zahara stepped down to embrace each one, tears flowing freely now. "The first graduating class of the Back Hall Project," she announced as they lined up beside her, "will be taught by these experts, because true hospitality can't be learned from textbooks alone. It must be taught by those who have lived it." The room erupted in applause. Journalists pushed forward, cameras flashing. But Zahara wasn't finished. "For too long, we were the unseen hands," she said, her voice carrying over the noise. "Now we are the architects." The workers on stage stood straighter, their faces shining with pride and possibility. In the front row, several hotel executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, seeing their own prejudices reflected in the tears of joy streaming down Maria's face. Zahara looked out at the crowd, her quiet power filling the room. The back hall has always been the backbone of this industry. Now it will also be its future. Alicia Sterling's designer heels pinched her feet as she rushed across the lobby of the Grand Plaza Hotel, formerly her domain. Now it felt like a prison. She carried a stack of fresh towels to room 237, where a guest had complained about a coffee stain on their linens. Her perfectly manicured nails, once used to point out others' flaws, now gripped cleaning supplies. "Ms. Sterling!" a sharp voice cut through the air. Mr. Davidson, a regular guest she used to fawn over, waved her down. "There's a problem with my room service order." Alicia forced a smile, her jaw aching from the effort. "I'll take care of that right away, sir." The words tasted bitter in her mouth. She remembered how she used to snap at housekeepers for not responding fast enough to guest complaints. Now, juggling multiple tasks at once, she understood the impossible dance they performed every day. The service elevator, the one she'd never used before her demotion, creaked as it carried her to the kitchen. Inside, the staff avoided her eyes. They remembered her cruel words, her casual dismissals of their concerns. Now she stood among them, just another worker in the vast machinery of the hotel. "Order for 512 was wrong," she told the kitchen supervisor, trying to keep the old commanding tone out of her voice. "Mr. Davidson wanted his steak medium rare, not medium." The supervisor barely glanced at her. "It'll be 20 minutes. 20 minutes! She used to scream at staff for such delays. Now she'd have to face Mr. Davidson's anger herself. Back in the lobby, a child spilled orange juice across the marble floor. Alicia grabbed the mop from the supply closet, her cheeks burning as guests stepped around her. She could feel their judgment, their assumption that she was beneath them. The same assumption she'd made about countless others. "Ma'am?" An elderly woman approached her. "The ice machine on the 4th floor isn't working." "I'll check it right away," Alicia replied, adding it to her mental list of tasks. Her feet throbbed. She'd been standing for 6 hours straight. As she wiped the last of the juice from the floor, she felt a presence behind her. Looking up, she saw Zahra Ellis standing there, wearing a simple but elegant business suit. The hotel owner's face was unreadable as she watched Alicia work. Alicia's hand tightened on the mop handle. She thought of the slap she'd delivered in this very lobby, how she'd treated Zahra like dirt. Now, kneeling on the floor with cleaning supplies, she felt the full weight of her actions. "Ms. Ellis," she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Zahra didn't speak. She simply observed as Alicia finished cleaning, then followed her to the supply closet. "The ice machine on 4 needs attention," Alicia said, to break the silence, unable to meet Zahara's eyes. "I know," Zahra replied softly. "I saw 3 guests report it. How long have you been on your feet today?" The question caught Alicia off guard. "Since 7 this morning. And how many complaints have you handled?" 17 so far." Alicia's voice cracked. "Plus cleaning duties, towel runs, and guest check-ins." Zahra nodded. "The same workload I used to carry. Though I did it for 16 years, not just 6 weeks. The words hit Alicia like another slap. But this time, she was the one who felt the sting of shame. She remembered mocking housekeepers for taking breaks, accusing them of laziness when they couldn't handle multiple tasks at once. "I didn't know," Alicia whispered, tears threatening to spill. "I never understood." "That was the problem," Zahra said. "You never tried to understand. You never saw us as people worthy of dignity." A guest's voice interrupted them. "Excuse me, I've been waiting to check in for 5 minutes." Alicia flinched. She used to be the one making others flinch. "Go," Zahra said quietly. "The guests are waiting." Alicia hurried to the front desk, her legs heavy with exhaustion. As she apologized to the irritated guest and began the check-in process, she felt Zahara's eyes on her. The woman she'd once humiliated now owned everything. The hotel, the brand, even Alicia's future. The guest berated her for the wait, demanding to speak to a manager. Alicia absorbed the abuse silently, understanding for the first time how it felt to be powerless, to smile through insults because your job depended on it. When she finally looked up again, Zahra was still watching. Their eyes met across the lobby. In that moment, Alicia saw herself reflected in Zahara's calm gaze, not the polished manager she'd once been, but the truth of who she was. Someone who had used power to hurt others, who had mistaken cruelty for strength. Zahra didn't smile or frown. She simply nodded, acknowledging Alicia's understanding before turning away. Her footsteps echoed across the marble floor as she walked toward the executive elevator, the same one she'd once been barred from entering. Alicia watched her go, then turned back to her tasks. The ice machine still needed fixing. 3 rooms needed fresh towels. A family was waiting to check in. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and her shift wouldn't end for another 4 hours. For the first time, she understood the weight of the work. Not just the physical labor, but the emotional toll of being treated as invisible, of swallowing your pride with every demanding guest, of pushing through exhaustion because others depended on you. She picked up her cleaning supplies and headed for the ice machine, walking the same paths that Zahra had walked for 16 years. Each step was a lesson in humility, each task a reminder of her past arrogance. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the Grand Plaza Hotel's marble floors. Hundreds of people packed the newly renovated lobby, their excitement electric in the air. At the center, beneath a red velvet curtain, stood what everyone had come to see, the hotel's new centerpiece. Zahara Ellis stepped onto the small platform, her beige trench coat catching the light. The crowd hushed. Former housekeepers, kitchen staff, and maintenance workers filled the front rows, many wiping tears from their eyes. Among them stood Maria, who had trained Zahara 16 years ago, her weathered hands clutching a tissue. "This hotel," Zahara began, her voice carrying through the space, "was built by invisible hands, by people who worked in shadows, who cleaned rooms while others slept, who carried the weight of luxury on their backs without recognition." She paused, meeting the eyes of her former colleagues. "Today, we step into the light." With steady hands, she pulled the curtain away. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The statue stood 7 feet tall, cast in bronze and bathed in morning light. A woman in a housekeeper's uniform held blueprints in one hand, her other hand reaching toward the sky. Her face bore the quiet dignity of those who build empires from the ground up. At the base, a plaque read, "To those who built it all." Maria sobbed openly now, supported by other former staff members. They recognized themselves in the statue's features, the tired eyes, the straight spine, the determined set of the jaw. It was their story cast in bronze, their dignity finally acknowledged. Zahara cut the red ribbon stretched across the lobby. Applause thundered off the walls, the same walls she had once cleaned in the dead of night, dreaming of something more. She moved through the crowd, accepting hugs from former co-workers. Their embraces felt like coming home. These were the people who had shared their coffee with her during break times, who had covered her shifts when her daughter was sick, who had believed in her when no one else would. "Remember when we used to hide in the supply closet to study?" whispered Carmen, an older housekeeper who had often slipped Zahara extra sandwiches from the kitchen. "Look at you now, Mirena." Near the executive elevator, the same one she'd been dragged away from months ago, Zahara paused. The memory of Alicia's slap still lingered, but it no longer held power. She pressed the button, watching the doors slide open smoothly. No one stopped her. No one questioned her right to be there. The presidential suite on the top floor had been transformed into her office, where there had once been gaudy gold fixtures and pretentious artwork. Now hung photographs of hotel workers throughout the years. Their faces looked out from simple black frames. Dishwashers, maids, doormen, all the invisible armies that kept luxury hotels running. Zahara's daughter, Sarah, spun in circles by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her braids flying. "Mama, you can see the whole city from here. Come here, baby." Zahara opened her arms, and Sarah rushed into them. They stood together, looking out at the skyline. Somewhere out there was their old apartment, where they'd struggled to make rent, where Zahara had stayed up late into the night, teaching herself coding on a second-hand laptop while Sarah slept. "Remember when you used to help me clean rooms?" Zahara asked softly, stroking her daughter's hair. Sarah nodded against her chest. "I liked making the beds look pretty, but I didn't like how some people treated you. That's why we changed things." Zahara turned to her desk, a simple, elegant piece made by a local craftsman. On it sat a framed photo of her mother, who hadn't lived to see this day. Next to it lay her old employee badge, its plastic surface scratched from years of use. The sound of celebration still drifted up from the lobby. Through the window, Zahara could see people gathering around the statue, taking pictures, touching its base reverently. Former workers brought their children forward, pointing up at the figure that represented their legacy. She thought of Alicia, now working in guest services, learning the weight of the work she'd once dismissed. The woman's arrogance had crumbled day by day, replaced by the hard-earned wisdom of service. On Zahara's desk lay the new employee handbook she'd written herself. Its first page stated in clear terms, "Every worker, from housekeeper to executive, deserves dignity, respect, and a path to growth." The back-hall project was already changing lives, with 15 former housekeepers now in management training. "Mama," Sarah said, pointing to the statue below, "she looks like you." Zahara smiled, remembering all the nights she'd sketched system designs while sitting on overturned buckets in supply closets. How she'd practiced coding during her lunch breaks, ignoring the mockery of supervisors who said she was reaching above her station. "She looks like all of us, baby. Every person who ever dared to dream bigger than the box they put us in." The morning light streamed through the windows, warming the space that had once been forbidden to her. In the distance, cranes rose against the sky, building tomorrow's hotels. But they would be different now, designed with worker dignity in mind, built on a foundation of respect rather than exploitation. Zahara ran her hand along the smooth surface of her desk, feeling the grain of the wood beneath her fingers. So different from the rough handles of mops and vacuum cleaners she'd once gripped. But she would never forget those tools, never forget the lessons learned in back hallways and service elevators. Looking out at the city spread before her, Zahara whispered the words that had carried her through all the years of struggle. "We don't just walk in the front door anymore. We design the building." I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have handpicked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.